Okay. Hello everyone. Good morning and good evening. This is Velero community meeting on March 29th. First, for some overall status, we have reached the FC point for V1.11 on last Friday. So we are doing some post-FC testing, and when we finish the testing, we will see how many bugs and how many bugs and whether we need to fix them, and then we will be able to know the RC date or time. And for V1.12, that is the next release, we have started the plan, and so we are collecting the requirements for candidates for V1.12. So if you have any requirement want to get into V1.12, just add the 1.12 candidate label at the issues shown here. That's it for the overall status. And for next, for some individual update, myself is working on some manual tests for V1.11, and also I have tested the data more POC integrates with the RIAV2 code, and currently the basic workflow could finish. I mean, so, but there was still some code changes because the data upload CR, the method to download the data upload CR during install has some change. So I modified the code and also modified the design doc. Yeah, that's from my side. And Xun, please.
I'm also working on the 1.11 manual test and adding some E2E test cases for new feature and some other issue fixes. And that's all.
Okay, thanks. And Wenkai.
Yeah, I mainly focus on the manual testing. Yeah, that's it from me.
Okay, thanks. Danfeng.
Okay. From my side, I bump up the Kubernetes version up to 1.25 innately on main branch. And the second is also working on 1.11 manual test. That's all from my side.
Okay, thanks. That's a lot.
Yeah, so there was a couple of other additional PRs relating to the item operations that got merged over the last week. New bug reported from the testing this week. Have a bug fix up there under review. I made some changes in response to review comments today. So hopefully that will be good to go. And then I also have the example plugin for backup item action, restore item action v2. And we need that merged in order to write the end-to-end test because that's going to need to be used for that.
Okay, thanks. I will check this PR again. I think it has already been ready for review, for merge. Yes, and Shubham, yeah, and Shubham.
Yeah, I just took a look at the data mover design PR. I did a few comments, but yeah, overall seems reasonable to me. Thanks for that, Lyndon.
Okay. I think that comments, and I will check that and get back. Yeah. And anyone else has some update? If not, we go to the discussion topic section. There one topic from myself, and it's about to deprecate the RASIC path for file system backup. As we as we know, we in 1.10 we have included the copy path, and we have run that for about for quite some while, and together with the REST path, but the REST path is still with as a default path for file system backup. So now we propose to start the concrete deprecation process for this file system backup. For example, we can first make the copy path as a default path. And besides that, I think we also need to finish the Velero deprecation process that has been included in this PR. So, and then we can merge the PR.
Yeah, I was gonna say, we definitely need the deprecation process finalized first, because once we have that, then we know, for example, once we deprecate it, if we deprecated RESTIC and 1.13, for example, the process would determine, what release we could remove it in, or if it was 1.12, then again, the process would talk about how long we need to keep that deprecated functionality in place before we actually remove it.
Yeah, so there are two things. First is to make consensus within this PR and merge that. And another thing is we set the copy path as the default path. And for this one, what is our opinions? Like, can we do that in V1.11 or we do that in 1.12?
Yeah, yeah, I think I think firstly we need the deprecation process PR get merged. I just have a quick check on this PR. Seems like there's still some comments not addressed, right?
We need the deprecation process merged before we can deprecate RESTIC. We don't have to have RESTIC deprecated to make copy of the default, because we could make copy of the default in 1.12 for 1.11, for example, and then in the following release deprecate RESTIC. We don't have to do those at the same time necessarily. It might actually make sense to make copy of the default first and don't deprecate RESTIC yet, and then in the next release deprecate.
Okay.
Yeah. But for this deprecation RESTIC, I think there are two things we are talking about. Is make the copy as the default dead path. Another one is by when we can remove the RESTIC.
Yeah.
But by looking into the process, I think if this deprecation process was merged and approved, pulled and merged, I think we should follow up that process to launch the deprecation discussion by file a ticket in the GitHub and to identify what we will do and by when we can by when we'll launch the deprecation and in which release we can totally remove that. So right. I think discuss the detail in that ticket once we file that, right?
Yeah. The deprecation policy is a general policy because that will state, for example, if we have to keep, a deprecated API or functionality, must stay around for 2 releases or whatever we define there. That's a general policy for anything we deprecate. Then we can have a specific discussion around deprecating RESTIC. And there's when we would propose, okay, we want to deprecate RESTIC in 1.12 or 1.11 or whatever version. And then we can use the deprecation policy to decide, based on what version we deprecate it, what version can we remove it in. I think making copy of the default is obviously a necessary part of this, because if you removed, once it's deprecated, clearly it needs to not be the default anymore. But we can make copy of the default earlier even. One advantage of making copy of the default before we deprecate RESTIC is we'll get a lot more people using it. So we can, because we don't want to deprecate RESTIC if we're still having, stability issues, for example, with Copia. And maybe we don't, because we had it in 1.10 already. But I'm just thinking the discussion of when we would make Copia the default is really kind of separated from deprecating RESTIC, because, for example, we could choose, although this isn't the plan, to make Copia default and never remove RESTIC and keep them both together. Obviously, we don't want to do that. I'm just saying, but technically, those are separate decisions to make. So when do we want to make Copia the default for the average Velero user, and then when do we want to deprecate RESTIC, and then removing RESTIC is going to be a function of the deprecation policy, because we'll have a certain number of releases we have to keep it around.
Yeah. So Scott, you mean even we did not get the get the concession deprecation realistic, but we still can to make the default data path to copia, right?
And we could do that because again, making copy of the default is not saying that Restic is deprecated, because we could say, hey, we want to keep both of these forever, but we want Restic to copy to be the default. So those are kind of two separate things. But obviously, we have to make copy of the default, by the time we deprecate Restic, because we don't want the default to be a deprecated API.
Yeah. So it looked like the point is whether we want to add the change the default value as part of the deprecation process, or the changing default value thing, just like we are doing for Restic. It's some common thing as the process of the deprecation. If not, we can do that separately, right? So the current point is whether we want to add that thing into the current deprecation process.
Yeah, well, this deprecation process doesn't even reference Restic, because this is a general deprecation process. This is how does Velero handle with deprecating any feature. So I think this is a general policy we need to determine first before we then propose a separate, GitHub pull request or issue. I guess it'll be an issue to discuss specifically following the new deprecation policy. We now propose to deprecate Restic in this release. But this policy here, this PR, is a general policy for deprecation of any feature. It doesn't necessarily reference Restic in particular.
Yeah. So okay. It means that we can do that separately. So the next question is, do you want to do that in this release? I mean, the v1.11 for Restic.
Do you mean in terms of deprecating, or do you mean in terms of making a copy of the default?
Yeah, making copy of default.
Yeah, I don't have a strong opinion on that one in terms of when we should make it the default. I just know that we need to make it at some point before we deprecate.
Yeah, I think giving 1.11 is already FC, and we're coming to FC1. I think make this default data path change. We need to think about more about that. If there are any other impact for this release. So I'm not sure. That's just my opinion. I think we may need some discussion around that before change the default data path.
Let's keep it optional. We can do it as a default in 1.12, right? Because for data mover, we'll always be using Copia. There is no option for Restic, right?
Yeah, but if we that's a good point. So if we introduce the data mover in next release 1.12, so by that time I think make the data path as a default to Copia maybe more makes sense, right?
Yep.
That's my opinion.
Okay. Yes. It's an open question, so we can think that further. So before we decide that we will not change even 1.11, but if finally we want to change that, let's see if there is any strong requirements on that. And so it's at the current situation, based on the discussion just now, we did some work. Both of those some work on 1.12, and so I think we can continue for this one, for the deprecation process PR. We can continue on that, and we can merge that in the early stage of the v1.12. And so that we can do other tasks based on that.
Yeah, so first to get the process PR get merged is something we need to work on currently. And I think there are some comments from E1, right? So it did not get resolved. So maybe we can follow up that probably with E1 if there are any other things need to resolve on this PR.
Okay, let's work on this PR offline. Yeah, that is for the current topic. And any other topics we want to discuss in this meeting?
Yeah, one thing I just to ask help leader from Shubham and Sukar. So please review the data move design PR. I think that is something we planned in 1.11 to get the data move design ready for next release. So please help review that PR.
Yeah, I did a first pass and added a few comments. I'll see if there is anything else that I need to add.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Shubham. Actually, most of the things are based on the discussions. I mean,
Yeah,
the
we
two discussions.
already agreed upon a lot of stuff before this. So
Yeah, some new parts like when we for the result part, we added some new things like when we want to get the data uploader CR, that is we want some essential information during the result from the backup, right? So we don't want to resort the CR, I mean the data upload CR directly into the cluster because that is only useful for during the result. So we just want to get the information from the CR and then create another object. Currently we create a config map and a config map to include only the essential information from the backup, and then that will help the result. That is one change. Yeah.
basically, then you just read the status of backed up CR, create a config map. Then based off that config map, you create the download CR, right?
Yeah. That
Okay.
is.
Okay.
That is the process. And the other thing is we have added or clarified some requirements on the data download plugin. I mean, during the result that because the data mover will create the PV for that PVC. So we have added some clarification for the PV
Yeah,
for
that
the plugin like.
Velero will not be responsible, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we added a selector and a label. That is the data mover will add the label for the created PV and to prevent the PVC from automatically bounded by the Kubernetes system. The PVC need to add this a selector. That is actually that is what we are doing in the code, but it is not covered. It was not covered during our discussion because maybe we thought that it's detailed, but later we think it is necessary to clarify in this doc. So we added that. And finally, the final things like about the backup deletion. So because when we delete the backup, we need to delete the snapshot in the backup repository. I mean the data, right?
Yeah.
So we added this one part about the backup deletion, that the process is something like we will create a delete item action, and then to handle the to handle the deletion of the data upload CR, and then it will further delete the data from the backup repository. Yeah, I think that is the new things.
Yeah,
That is.
I like the approach. I went through the deletion part. It was something we needed. So thanks for that. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. So or we can continue review on the PR, and everything is of the design, new and old, are all included in the PR. So thanks, and we can continue review that.
Cool.
Okay, that is any other thing we want to discuss? Okay, if not, I think we can finish up here. Thanks everyone, and have a good day and night. Bye bye.
Thank you. Thank you, folks.
you.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.